Good evening. We are just going to wait a minute or two to allow more people to sign in. It sounds like we can hear Christina now. So,
Okay.
David, if you want to start. Yes.
Perfect.
All right.
Sorry, I had problems with my other computer. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
No problem. All right, we'll get started. I think we didn't get a lot of RSVPs, so I think we've got who we believe will be joining us tonight, so we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here. I just want to go over some of the basics. You can see on the screen some of the things that we'll be doing with the GoToWebinar. Megan has everybody muted right now, so that way there's no interference with background sounds. You will be able to, if you'd like, to submit your questions and comments using the questions panel. However, given that we do have a small group currently, it will probably be better, go ahead and use the raise hand function, and we'll be able to then unmute your microphone, and we can have a little bit of a dialogue, a little bit better for that tonight. We do have translation services here. Ms. Christina Green is with us, and she'll provide those services. And I'm going to turn it over to her real quickly.
Buenas tardes y gracias a todos por venir. Si alguno de ustedes necesita servicios de interpretación, yo voy a estar en la línea en espera de cualquier pregunta que ustedes tengan. Esta presentación está incluida en la parte de abajo donde dice Handouts en español para su consulta. En caso de alguna pregunta, por favor, háganos saber en el área que dice Questions y allí podremos responderles al final de la presentación. Ustedes van a estar en mute durante toda la sesión y después se pueden abrir los micrófonos. Gracias.
Thank you, Christina. All right, so we will get started. This is night 2 of our first public information meeting for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Improvement Project of West National Avenue between 39th Street and 1st Street, State Trunk Highway 59. This presentation is going to be exactly the same one that was held last night. So if you didn't join us last night, don't worry, there's no different information being presented. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the project website, as was last night's will be. So that way, if you do want to hear what the questions posed and some of our responses were, you will be able to listen to both of those meetings if you'd like to. So the agenda for tonight, want to keep it pretty quick and simple. Want to get to mostly the listening to your questions and getting your comments. We'll do brief introductions. I'll go over the project very briefly, focus more on the public involvement, the meetings that we have planned, kind of when they will be occurring, what we're hoping to accomplish at each of those meetings, the different ways that we're trying to gather public input. discuss the stakeholder advisory committee that we put together for this project. Quickly go over some of the key elements of the project schedule, and then get to the important part of opening it up to questions and comments. So introductions. My name is David Tapia. I will be the project manager for the city of Milwaukee. My information is there on the screen. Please make note that the phone number that went out in the letter that was mailed out is incorrect. So that is my correct phone number up there. With us is also Megan O'Connor. She is our support for business liaison. She's the one put all this hard work and got this these webinars put together, and will continue to work with us through this entire process. And Ms. Christine Hanna, she is the Wisconsin DOT project manager. Her information is also included. All right, a quick overview. National Avenue, State Truck Highway 59, is an urban 4-lane undivided arterial here on the city's near south side. The project is being proposed primarily to address the condition of the pavement out there, as well as the safety of the roadway. The last time work was done on this was in 1992 with a small asphaltic overlay that now is starting to unravel and show lots of signs of failure. So our proposed improvement is to replace the over 2.5 miles of the roadway. Elements will also include replacing curb and gutter and sidewalk as necessary, improve our storm sewer systems, driveway aprons, also upgrade newer equipment for street lighting as well as our traffic signals, and install or address non-ADA compliant curb ramps, basically construct ADA compliant curb ramps out there. Current construction estimate is between $20 to $25 million. This is a large investment by the state of Wisconsin on this system and in the city of Milwaukee. We're very appreciative of that. There will be some real estate necessary for this project. It is going to be in the form of what we call temporary limited easements. It's going to be mostly for the curb ramps and driveway construction, and these are basically necessary for only during construction. It'll be at the time when the contractor's out there and may need to come on the private property to not only construct the curb ramps and the driveways, but then to also make sure that we are putting everything back, even on private property, to look as good as possible when we leave the project. National Avenue is an oversized, overweight truck route, and it is part of the MAP 21 National Highway System principal arterial. There are two primary existing typical sections out there. The first one is from 39th to 13th Street. We've got a 90-foot right-of-way section. So the sidewalk sits about 2 feet off of private property. So it's if it's the front of a building or private residential front lawn. We have about 2 feet from behind the sidewalk to the right-of-way line. Typically, there's about a 7-foot terrace out there. Some of it's green space, some of it is full sidewalk width. The existing roadway typical are 2 12-foot driving lanes, 2 11-foot driving lanes, and 2 7-foot parking lanes throughout. At the signalized intersections, we do widen out to provide left turn lanes. This is the typical section through that area. The other section from 13th to 1st is a narrower footprint. We have 75 feet of right-of-way. Our sidewalk sits only 1 foot off of the right-of-way line. The typical is that it's somewhere around 7.5 feet of sidewalk, and that's it until you get to the almost same roadway cross section of 2 12-foot driving lanes. Here, the other lane is only 10, and then the narrow 7-foot parking. Our goals for the project, as mentioned before, obviously, is to replace that existing deteriorated pavement to get a better riding surface out there. We want to improve the safety for all the users along the corridor. We're looking to improve speed limit compliance through our designs. We also want to decrease crash rates and crash severity. We want to try to also work with the stakeholders in the community to have a visually appealing finished roadway project when we're done. So the public involvement, we currently scoped with the department for public information meetings like this. And it's not to say it's the only time that we plan to meet with the public. We want to meet with the public as often as necessary. But these are the 4 main times that we will be getting in front of as many people as they can attend to these. And you can see that tonight is the first public information meeting, and our goal, we really just wanted to get out in front of everybody and let you know that this project is out there. It's going to be coming along, you know, in a few years. We want to gather the information. What are your concerns and your issues and your goals for this project? Then between the first and second information meeting, we will be gathering a lot of data, taking all of your comments and concerns, results of the surveys that we've posted out there, and start to develop alternatives that we can present at the second information meeting. Bring all of those alternatives to the public and start getting feedback on what works, doesn't work, what they like, what they don't like about all of them. And so that's, you know, going to be spring of next year. Once we've gotten all that information, we can then start to narrow down those alternatives and work towards what we call a preferred alternative. Bring that preferred alternative and, you know, any sort of other feasible options, which tend to, you know, might be little offshoots of the preferred alternative. Bring that back to the public one last time to get final feedback that will allow us to get through our environmental documentation process and then move into final design. So then the fourth larger meeting would then be, you know, 2.5 years later, when we've gotten through the design of this preferred alternative and we're starting to move into how are we going to stage the project, what are the construction plans going to look like, and come back, meet with the public again to get information and feedback on any concerns the public's going to have with how are we constructing this project and what the impacts will be to property owners out there. Your input is crucial for this project to make sure that we do have a well thought out design project. And so far, in addition to these meetings, getting some information and feedback from you, we have sent out the mailing that we sent out to the property owners, as well as being placed on the project website, included a comment card and a survey, both in English and in Spanish. So we can, you know, if you receive these in the mail, please feel free to, you know, fill them out and mail them back to me. If you didn't, you live further away from the project, but you want your voice heard, please go on the website and complete these. If you want a hard copy mailed to you, please just put that in the comment box. We'll get your name and address, and we can send these out to you hard copy for you to complete and send back to us. Through the life of the project, we will continue to ask for comments and put together other surveys as we move along in the design and make sure that everybody's aware of that and give that opportunity to have your voice heard. This is the address, the website, the project website. There's a section right there highlighted, feedback and comments. That's where you can, you know, do the life of the project, go on, let us know what your thoughts are, how things are progressing, what your concerns are, what you'd like to see. And right next to there, there's an area where you can sign up to receive project updates via email. We're also, Megan is utilizing a lot of different social media and working with our stakeholder partners out there. We give them the same messages and ask them to spread the word out to as many of their followers as possible as well. I mentioned earlier a stakeholder advisory committee, so we put one together that we asked members of the community, along with our the government staff in the state and in the city, to come together as a group, and we meet quarterly, and we discuss the project and concerns that we're hearing, things that we can try to do as part of the project, how we can get the message out to everybody, work as a group to, and the community, the advisory committee is, put together to try to represent the entire corridor so that we're not focusing on one neighborhood or one type of stakeholder above any of the others. So it's a good mix of people that are there to make sure that this final product benefits the area and the community as best as possible. This is our primary or core advisory committee. The list is also on the website. Comprising of members of the City of Milwaukee, our alderpersons, DPW and DCD, members of the state. Project manager Christine is part of that group, and then a handful of people from you can see different neighborhood groups are part of that. They're a conduit to you as well. They'll bring back what they're hearing. They're going to be shared. We'll share with them project updates and information. Ask them to share that with all of their members and followers as well. So that we're trying to get share as much information with as many people as possible and gather as much information from as many people as possible as we go through this process. So our schedule, we started, pretty much kind of in the middle of 2020. We've been, gathering a lot of data out there. The survey is going to be wrapping up soon. We'll be able to start actually moving into putting plans together, doing some of the report preparation. A lot of traffic data is being collected, traffic volumes, speeds. We're counting pedestrians and bicyclists and looking at turning movements and crashes, so we can get a really clear picture of what's really going on out there. You can see the the large public information meetings we got slated here at the end of 2020 and the 2 in 21. We'll be doing a lot of alternatives development early 21. As I mentioned before, our goal is to have our environmental document approved in early 2022, which allows us to move into final design. We'll be able to put our plat together so that we can start reaching out to property owners to get through that process of we call acquiring those TLEs. And then we could have a final, the construction related public information meeting in early to mid 2024, so we can wrap up our final design plans. Our schedule is May of 2025, and we will then go to construction in 2026 and 2027. Given the length of the project being over 2.5 miles long, we anticipate breaking the project in half, doing half of the east or west half in 2026, then come back in 2027, do the other half. And there's always the potential that in 2028 we're doing final signals and lighting installations and taking down the temporary stuff and any potential landscape elements that we'd rather put in the spring. So you might still see some work being done in early 2028 as well. All right, I appreciate you bearing with me as I went through that pretty quick, but now the important part is we want to hear from the public.
So Kevin Driscoll submitted a question. Is the new storm sewer work extending to the Menominee River, or is the sewer work only within National Avenue?
only within National Avenue, and it's primarily going to be from the inlets at the outside and the laterals that connect to the main. Given it'll be based on condition and size. We'll probably next spring, our staff will go out there and look into the inlets and into the pipes as much as possible, determine their condition, if they need to be removed, if we know of any issues with standing water or drainage issues where it might require upsizing the storm sewer pipes, then that's what it's going to be. No drastic change to where the outfalls is, into the existing system. And I believe the large majority of this is a combined sanitary sewer system.
Just as a reminder, because it is a small group, you could hit the raise your hand feature and we can open it up to have more of a dialogue. Feel free to just submit your questions as they come in. Just so everyone knows, that does conclude the formal presentation. So we are here just to address any concerns or questions. So I see Montavious has his hand raised. I am going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. So you should be able to do that now. Looks like you are self-muted.
Okay.
Hi.
Is it good to go? Cool. Hi.
Yeah.
Greetings. Good evening. David and Megan, thank you guys for organizing this and putting this together and being here this late, presenting this to us. We appreciate that. I know this is early, so I think getting down the philosophy around what it is that we're going to be doing going forward is really important. So the design specs and all that stuff will come down the line. But I want to start with the story about a personal story about how I used National Avenue before.
Yes, please.
I don't own a car. I walk, I bike, I bus. I frequent National Avenue. I get my hair cut right on, 11th and National. I go out on 2nd and National when we could go out. Walking around 2nd Street, crisscrossing National. I often take the blue line through National, going down to the south side from the north side. So I come at this from a person who does not drive a car. A person who experiences the city at 3 miles per hour, 2 miles per hour, 10 on a bike. I don't bike very fast.
Me either.
So when I look at the street in its current configuration, it is not conducive to any of those. Especially the portion between like 2nd up to 16th Street. Does not feel safe at all to bike on. I'm an avid biker. I bike at night all over the city. Like, I don't get scared about biking. National Avenue, I do not bike in the street. Won't do it. Will not do it. Because it feels terrifyingly dangerous because of the cars, if that wasn't clear. Car speed, car volume, the width between the sidewalk and the parking lane and where the driving lane where we're forced as bikers does not feel safe. And these are the kind of things that, if you don't live in the neighborhood or you don't frequent the neighborhood, you just drive through National Avenue, you might not think about. But there are real people who live in this corridor who every day have to experience the walking, biking, busing, etc. Just the danger of National Avenue. When I drive a car, rarely that I do, I feel safe because the road has been constructed to make me feel safe, to get me through quickly, because speed is the name of the game on National Avenue. And anybody else is kind of just a casualty of that road design. We get the scraps. The sidewalks are just, you can't walk two abreast down the street on National Avenue. And a lot of times there are no cars actually parked in the street. So it feels like if you stick your hand over the street, you're going to get clipped by a car or a bus. It just doesn't feel safe. So I want us to really be thinking about the city and streets from a pedestrian scale level. Like what's in the mind of those people outside of their cars? And right now in their minds is, this is dangerous, I don't want to be here. That's not conducive to encouraging more businesses to open up on the street. It's not encouraging to people be out walking, which makes streets safer, more eyes on the street. It does not encourage people to exercise, do biking, walking for fun, recreation, because right now the street's designed for cars. And this has been going on for at least one generation now, given the current road design. Slowly but surely chipped away at National Avenue, narrowing the sidewalks for more cars. Going forward, we cannot subject another generation or two to the same car-centric road design that we have right now. We just cannot do it. And it's a hazard to our physical health. It's a hazard to our mental health. And it's a hazard to the well-being and livelihoods of people who have to frequent that street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Montavious. And we agree 100%, you know, that it is dangerous. We will, I think somebody's still got their mic, I hear myself. Is that better? Okay, thanks. Yeah, and so, you know, gotten a lot of comments to date already that reflect the same sentiment that you have. You know, we will be collecting the crash information. We know this is this corridor is on the high injury network for pedestrians. So we know there's an issue with that. We don't have bike lanes out there, so we likely don't, unfortunately, see a lot of bicyclists, which is a shame. And because you're right, they probably don't feel it's a very safe corridor to be out there. I hope you're aware that, you know, the city recently enacted sort of the complete streets policy, and we will be working within that framework to create a roadway that serves all users. Yes, it will be, you know, for the vehicles, but it will also be for pedestrian, bicycles, transit as well, and for all skill levels and capabilities of those users as well. So we are committed to working with our partner DOT and the community inside that that policy to create a much better National Avenue, basically.
Okay, Jake Newborn has his hand raised. And Jake, try to unmute your microphone. Oh, it's muted by me. Let's undo that. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Megan and David, for hosting this. Appreciate your work here. And I'd like to thank Montavious as well for jumping in there. That was really, I think, some important words to hear. And I think a really great, just I think you put it really well. So hey, Montavious, and thanks for that. I was kind of, I do have a few questions. I'll try and kind of work through them methodically here and try and stay kind of on course. So first, you Mr. Tapia, you just mentioned that, you know, you guys will be working with WSDOT and following, you know, complete street guidelines. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? What guidelines you might look at, or what WISDOT has said about this project. I guess just, yeah, if you can elaborate on that, maybe.
All right, sure. I mean, so the state is well aware of our Complete Streets policy. They are backing that policy and able, and will be able to design what, working with them through, we still also have, their own requirements as part of the facilities development manual that we'll have to also work with. But they're aware that we have this policy in place, and we are looking to make strides of improving our roadways for more than just vehicles. And it's hard to really say right now, as an engineer, sure, I'd love to say, oh, I've got the solution right now. I've already thought about it. I know what I want to do. But we've got to take this step by step, and it's going to be getting the data, looking at the data, looking at what our alternatives are, what can we do in that footprint that improves pedestrian bicycle safety and usability, makes vehicular traffic safer as well, and just going through that.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to discuss, kind of relate this to another project, Greenfield Avenue, which was recently constructed by DPW, where that had a lot of crash instances on it. And I'm just looking at the past 2 years, from about 2018 when that was constructed, I can see just as many, if not more, amount of crashes on that stretch from just using the community crash maps from the previous 2 years. And I'm just wondering if the lessons learned in a greenfield reconstruction will be applied to a much larger street, but also nearby, or if we're looking at utilizing the same tactics that from the crash data that I'm privy to hasn't been effective.
We're always evolving and learning from past projects. In our multimodal unit, and I'm sure you're aware of that, the Complete Streets policy includes putting together a yearly summary of, what projects have been put in place, and I believe, they do pre and post studies to try to, show what the existing issues, whether it's speeding, crashes, etc. And then after, and we are able to dissect and look at and say, okay, what did we do that we believe really worked, and are there things that we did that are just not working, and maybe we need to go in a different direction. So we aren't going to design this in the bubble of without looking at what things have we done throughout the city that have worked for us.
David, this is Christine Hanna. Can I just add to what you, or elaborate a little bit more of what you just said, to Jake, that we have some systems in place to ensure that when we are looking into a project, we do investigate thoroughly the current crashes and what the reason behind each crash. So when we are doing our traffic analysis and our design, they are tailored to those crashes outcome and analysis to ensure that we avoid those crashes and any other particular crashes within that segment. So it is different from one segment to the other, but I assure you we are looking very closely to this with very many details. So hopefully that will answer your question and assure you that we are looking into it.
Yeah, thank you for jumping in there. I guess question then, is there any sort of written formal agreement between WISDOT and Milwaukee DPW on their agreement on kind of designing or what's allowed and what's not allowed, or is that just always changing?
I would go with the latter. It's always changing. I mean, I would like to think that our Complete Streets policy will ever evolve. as we learn more. And the Department of Transportation's facilities development manual is changing all the time. So to sit there and say, oh, we're just going to sign an agreement today that locks us into that, I don't think would be prudent. We continue to work with it, as the department learns and they improve their procedures and processes and design guidelines, we will continue to work within those as well.
Again, this is Christine jumping in again, David. So from the WSDOT perspective, we 100% back the city with the complete street aspect. We do have our own policies and procedures to be followed for a complete street to accommodate all modes of transportation, either bicycles, pedestrian or vehicles, or bus transit. So we do look into this, and we work closely, not just with the city, with any other municipality. So we come in agreement for the what's best for the public. So like David said, it's evolving, but also we all the time have the goal in mind, all of those multimodal methods to be accomplished and accommodated for during the design and the construction phases as well.
Can I follow up there, Christine? I mean, I'm aware that the state rescinded their statewide complete streets policy. So what specific policies are the DOT following to make sure that those are met?
Well, we have several documentation in place that are not going to be approved or processed or even allow the project to evolve to the next phase unless those reports are being signed by, for example, we have an ADA compliant individual who does review what we have investigated and what are the proposal for those analysis to accommodate either pedestrian or bicyclists. We have our traffic section that does review those traffic analysis and investigations and generate reports that needs to be completed and signed before we proceed. So the DOT have its own procedures to ensure that those certain aspects of the project are being adhered to. It's not going to proceed to the next phase unless all of those items and those checklists has been marked.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take up big. I know if there's other people have questions.
Take your time. We have plenty of time. Take your time.
I have one more question for now, and then I'll open it back up and at least give people a chance. Relating to the stakeholders list as it is now, David and Megan, I didn't see anyone from Milwaukee County Transit or any of the schools. I counted on a quick map check about 6 schools that are within a quarter mile of the south side, on the south side of National. And I know that MCTS, that's multiple bus lines are running down there. So I'm just curious if there's any thought to maybe add them as stakeholders or strategies for getting their feedback.
Sure. The list that I presented was sort of what we call the kind of the core, and again that goes back to them being those conduits and sharing information with their community-based groups out there. When we have these stakeholder advisory committees, there's still even a larger group of people, and MCTS is one that is invited to attend the meetings, but we aren't asking them to get information and feedback from the public and bring it to us, and we don't ask them to take our information and try to get it out to the public. So they are part of the meetings, but not part of that core group, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that same is with the schools. I believe there's like 1 or 2 people from nearby schools that are invited to the meeting. But Megan and I are also going to create a group, or I don't want to say really a committee, but we want to have a group of just where it's just the school members, liaisons with that, so that way we can meet with them entirely separate from the other advisory committee and really focus on their issues and concerns, because they're going to be very different and unique.
Okay, thank you. I'll relinquish my time for right now and leave if anyone else wants to talk. Thank you.
Yep.
So Carissa Givens submitted a question. The Complete Streets policy is just that, it's a policy. It's up to residents and community stakeholders to hold local government responsible. We have historically seen failure by these two entities to prioritize the issues that is for vulnerable users. Can you make written formal commitment to meet our local standards? At this point, we expect nothing less from your project team.
I'm not sure written a written, you want a written document that says, I'm not sure I understood what the request was before I respond to it.
Megan, can you read the question again, please?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. The Complete Streets policy is just that, it's a policy. It's up to residents and community stakeholders to hold local government responsible. We have historically seen failure by these two entities, meaning DPW and DOT, to prioritize the issues that is vulnerable users. Can you make written formal commitment to meet our local standards? At this point, we expect nothing less from your project team. And so she followed up saying, issue a statement from your collective departments to share with the community. It's not law, there are no incentives to uphold this policy. So my understanding, and I don't want to speak for Carissa, but as I'm reading this, I think she's just looking for DOT and DPW to come out and say, we will be implementing Complete Streets into this project.
Okay, so this is Christine. Let me jump in before David jump on that. So Carissa, let me assure you something. If this policy is not being followed, this project have a very good chance of not being moved forward in the process. So we are as DOT, and I'm sure the city would agree, we are here to enforce those policies. And we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have reports to document those policies and how we are investigating them and how we are recording them and how we are proceeding with them. So I assure you, I'm not sure what happened on other projects you are referencing to, but all DOT projects have to follow those policies and they are enforced unless there are sometimes some exceptions, and those exceptions are well written and well documented before proceeding to the next phase. So I think these are our written agreements in our facility development manual. They are there telling the project team, whether in design or in construction, those policies are to be followed and adhered to. It's up to you, David, if you want to elaborate or add more.
No, I agree. And, it's, the Complete Streets policy is a, the Commissioner of Public Works, it's an important aspect of our design. It goes up, he not only will back our designs and our what we're proposing for improvements out there, but he's going to be basically making sure that we are following that policy as we move forward. And I know, when you say historically, it's probably pre our policy being put in place. And again, it's relatively new, and there probably were historic failures where roads were predominantly being designed and constructed for just purely the movement of vehicles. But there's a shift, and we are going to be part of that shift in making sure that all the users can use this corridor safely. And yes, you have the commitment, and as the public, you're going to hold us to that as we move forward into our designs, our alternatives, and we're presenting those. It's when you're going to be able to provide your input and feedback and question us and push us into better designs for this area. We look forward to it.
So Carissa has her hand raised, so I am going to try to unmute your microphone, and then you may have to unmute yourself now. It looks like you're self-muted. Yep, there you go.
Thank you, and thank you all to this project team for putting this information together for the community and also making it in part bilingual, especially the presentation. I guess just to finish my statement, I have a little bit more intent knowledge of how Department of Public Works functions to a certain degree. That's my advantage as a community stakeholder that works in partnership with DPW on a regular basis. In respect to that internal work, I'll just be very plain or broad in terms of how I'm articulating this. The Wisconsin Bike Federation worked very diligently with community organizations across the city to actually co-write a complete streets policy that fulfilled the needs of all residents and the feasibility of an emerging department. I think that the thing that we are looking for, at least from the Wisconsin Bike Federation, is that this particular policy is literally brought up, used, and articulated in everything that you do, and it is a part of your lexicon. I must admit, initially moving into this presentation, I didn't really see any evidence of an adherence. I had to actually bring up the topic of complete streets to you to motivate you to discuss it, even though you have committed to it. And I will say that this is not, complete streets is not just a bike and pedestrian thing. It is a major projects thing. It is a Milwaukee Public Police Department thing. It is a Milwaukee Department Health thing. It is an all of us thing. And so when I ask for a verbal commitment, or excuse me, a written commitment, the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't feel that the public should have to continue to overtly prod and quiz your department about, what do you know about the high injury network? What do you know about specific crash data? How do bicycles inform this space? Those are the things that I want to see in a presentation right off the bat. Major projects should not be separate from the rest of the bike ped world. And I think that you can agree upon that, but I was hoping for a higher level of competence and understanding of what that means to you and your work. And I just want to put that out there very, very strongly, and of course you understand that. It's very tiresome to continue to go back to the well and ask these questions of people who work on these things, get paid to do these things, and then all of a sudden it's just like, I cannot handle the verbal commitment anymore. I want to see more people in local government coming out, making public statements and commitments to these things, putting them in writing, because again, this is just a policy. We have, if we do not, if we're not urgent about it, if we're not in your face about it, it gets put away in a file cabinet and pushed away. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll make an example of this, is we have a master bike plan, as you may know. It's been 10 years since we put that together, and there has been little to very little executed on that master bike plan. I don't know why. I don't know where the priorities lie. I don't know where the politics lie, but I don't want this particular policy to get buried like the master bike plan. And the issues are out there on the street, that we have a public health crisis and people are dying. I need more urgency from your department, your project teams, to execute this work in a way where it's not just one small department over here working on something. It's all of us working on something and making a commitment. So that is all I have to say. And I know it was a lot, and I apologize for taking up too much airspace, but it concerns me.
No, no, I appreciate your, dedication and, commitment to that policy. Kind of going back to the slide about, what the hope and purpose of this first meeting was to be less about us telling the public what we want to do, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, the policies we follow, the procedures we follow, how we, you know, design storm. We really wanted to, you know, here's a quick overview. We have a project, what we're trying to do, and put the focus on the public to get your comments and concerns. And so that's why there isn't a lot of, hey, you know, here's 3 slides on complete streets policy. Here's 2 slides on the environmental document. Here, you know, I wanted to avoid that. And that's why there's nothing on what the potential roadway could look like at this point. We're very, very, very early. We're still surveying. We're still collecting data. So we kind of deliberately focus more on the public's getting your input. Great input. But I hope you can understand why, you know, I didn't want to feel like I was talking to everybody for this entire meeting. I'd rather get the comments from everybody.
Did you see, oh, sorry, go on.
Carissa, this is Christine Hanna from the DOT. I just wanted also to add to what David have said, and he well spoken about that, is you are more than welcome to attend all the meetings that we are going to be holding in the future. If you're going to be interested to learn more about the project, you have our contact information. I would like you to use this project almost like a new beginning to kind of give us a chance to show you that how we are proceeding with I don't want to say the word enforcing, but using the complete street policy for the city of Milwaukee and for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. And that will give you a very good aspect of how we do things and the steps that we go through. So I strongly encourage you to get involved. Reach out to myself or to David at any time to share with you those steps, and that will give you an idea and use this as a good example to help us in the future.
Thank you. I see that Mr. Jones has his hand raised, so I am going to send an unmute request, and you may have to hit your microphone as well, Mr. Jones. Okay, I see that you should be able to speak. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know who Mr. Jones is. I'm Montavious. I'm
I missed it, sorry. Trying to be formal here.
no need. I have a couple, maybe a number of questions actually. One, the funding source, so 20 to 25 million. Can you tell us, one, where the money comes from and who has ultimate control over how those funds are going to get used?
Sure. So the primary funding source is federal and state dollars. And it's not as easy saying, oh, it's an 80-20 format, because the split in design, the split on participating, the split on parking and non-participating kind of muddies it. But the majority, you know, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, and Christine might have to correct me, I think 90-10 is probably a very close what the final split would be when all is said and done. 90% state and federal funds and 10% city.
Okay, and so this is a state road. So can you tell us about the relationship between DPW and DOT and how that's going to work out? Because it seems like ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, DOT has, you know, a bigger say because they have, it's technically their money or it's going through DOT and it's their road. So what role does DPW have, let's say, when there are conflicting priorities in the road use and design between DPW and DOT? Because I see myself more as a city person than a state person, and I'm guessing a lot of people feel the same way. So how can DPW actually influence the design if DOT says, no, we're going to do it this way, and DPW is not going to have a say in it?
Right, and you know, we've worked with the department on a number of projects throughout the city. These are connecting highway. We own and maintain the road, but it carries the state trunk highway on it. And then we also work with the department on projects that are local streets. And yes, there is, you know, a difference in it, but the department, you know, we do have to follow their facilities development manual. And then as long as our design meets the criteria of that, they I don't want to say they're hands off or they don't care, but I mean, as we are not going below desirable design guidelines, we are able to put a lot of our design into what this roadway is. Now, the flip side is some of the elements may require more funding to come from the city. And just as an example, you know, if we wanted to put in very decorative street lights, the department says, well, we fund for a standard luminaire street light. And if you want to put something more decorative that might cost more, we just have to pick up the tab for that additional cost. So it's a great working partnership, but there are, you know, there's that nuance of how some of those things have to be worked out as we go through the process.
Okay. My question. Oh, Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, can I add something to that? So I think it's going to help you understand the process. First, to answer your question, and David, this project is 80-20, 80 federal funds and 20 state funds for the specific projects. That's number one. Number two is just because we have federal funds on this project, we have to follow federal guidelines in order for us to deliver the project and design as needed to be adherent to the facility development manual that David was referring to. As David also mentioned, we have a very good relationship with the city. We have worked on numerous number of projects in the past that worked well with both of us. So there was very minimal conflict that I have seen between the state and the city guidelines and policies. It always aligns and we come to always an agreement. And if, like David says, if there is something that city wants more that the DOT can pay for or pick up the tab, the city agrees to pay the difference of that cost. So I don't think that we're going to ever, I don't want to say ever, but as long as we're working well together, I think we'll always be going to be on the same page and working well to serve the public at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Did we lose you, Montavious? I know I thought you had said you had multiple questions.
Yep, I asked them all.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Megan, Carissa Given still have she has a question. Did we address it or it just sounds?
Yes, we did. But I see that Jake Newborn's hand is up. I am going to send him an unmute request and then he will have to, yep, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess my first one is, I think you know, obviously, I think we're all, a few of us are familiar with each other from doing lots of these meetings. And I think there's the public, I mean, I think we want to get many more people than just these kind of same, you know, people who work on these projects all year round to be involved. And I think part of when we ask the public to say, hey, give us this feedback, what would you like to see more of? I don't know how many people are joining these and know what is a protected bike lane or what is a roundabout or what is a bulb out. And so I think I guess to the point, you know, David, I appreciate that you don't want to come in here and just kind of lay down the law, say this is what we're going to do and what we're going to plan. But sometimes people don't know what to ask for. So maybe if there was a little bit, a slide or two, or maybe if there was a separate, you know, DPW thing that focused on, hey, these are just training these. Maybe that's something the Bike Fed could partner with, you know, doing public input meetings on. These are things that could be added to projects or could be considered for projects. Because if I were just a resident of National Avenue and I said, oh, I got a flyer in the mail and I hopped on here, I mean, I may not know what to, to ask for, to bring up. So I think that some of this is, people like Caressa and myself, we try and push for some of these, bringing up these explanations and discussing these things because like I said, the general public may not know that those are even possible. They just may say, I have trouble crossing the street. But then in their comment, it doesn't get, official noted as this person asked for hawk beacon. And so I guess just kind of more of a comment there than a question. But my other question would be going back a little bit to the other stakeholders and stuff. I noticed looking at the list relating to the complete streets policy, none of the other stakeholders in that core were like health department or DCD or any of these cross-departmental things that could affect a complete streets policy. So can you maybe elaborate on what involvement they may have, even if they're not on the stakeholder list that was shared?
Well, DCD is. The health department, I don't have the other full list, but I don't believe anybody from our health department is part of it.
So again, I think there's a better way we can explain this. So the list that you see on our website, as David put it, as a core stakeholder list, as those agencies have said, yes, we would love to get your information and spread it to our networks. And if we get questions from our residents, we'll come back to you. There is a much bigger stakeholder list that does include multimodal, our Department of City Development. I know with upcoming projects, we have health department staff members on. So it's just making sure that they're part of this project moving forward. And I said this yesterday, but I think this stakeholder list will be forever growing as we continue into the development of this project. And it will be changing because it's a course of 6 years before or 5 years before we get to construction. So, I really appreciate hearing from you. These are great ideas. So, I think making these connections to improve this project is always great.
Great, thank you. And then, David, you did mention that there were, lots of kind of data that will be being taken. Is there any at this point that is able to be shared on that project page? Anything as far as parking studies, speed studies, crash studies, or is that just still to be done?
It's some of this information we have sort of like the raw data, and we need to go through it and get it into a manageable format and one that anybody who goes on the website and looks at can understand it. It's just printouts of information, that we are used to seeing. And we want to get it into a format that's a little bit easier. So yeah, there's going to be the mainline traffic volumes. We're counting. So we did 48-hour speed, vehicle, pedestrian and bicycle counts. We'll be doing the signalized intersection turn counts. We'll do a parking study. We'll probably wait until next spring to do that. I think that's and the crash data, obviously, and that information. Yeah, once we've got it into a format which is easy to share and easy for people to understand, then we can present that. And likely I'll be at the next public information meeting as well. And to kind of go back to your but your first comment in your second go around here is that, yeah, it was a toss up between, do I come into this meeting and start putting up pictures of bump outs and bus bulbs and tabletops and medians through intersections and things like that, where if I don't have the data yet, I'm not even sure they're feasible alternatives. So I didn't want to start presenting stuff that might not even be feasible yet. But that is what that second meeting, when we come in with alternatives and we're showing, you know, the myriad of different types of things that can be done and typicals that might be doable based on the information we've gathered, and be able to, you know, yes, have, okay, here's a bump out and what they are, what we try to accomplish with it, the benefits of them, bus bulb and a tabletop intersection and, you know, a mid-block crossing, you know, and then yes, to educate them and then start focusing on their, you know, this meeting was, you know, and we've got a lot of good, you know, results from the surveys and the comments where people are saying it's dangerous to cross here, it's hard to see here, it's not safe here, we see this here. That's the great information that we're looking for. And now the next one will be, hey, I like that type of design. If that could be implemented at this location, that would be fantastic. So, you know, to do this in bite-sized pieces for the public to, you know, first was let's get your concerns and where they lie out there, so that way, you know, when we get our data, we can see if it all starts to make sense for us. And when we start looking at alternatives, we put design alternatives at the locations that make sense and are feasible, and get the feedback and do more of that education with them at that point.
Okay, I mean, thank you. That I guess that helps me understand, I guess, what your goals you know, are there.
Yeah. And our project website is going to be, you know, a great tool for people, you know, because, you know, we will be able to, it won't just be at PIMs where we can share this. We'll be able to post it there that people can go to continue to see and learn as the project progresses.
David, this is Christine. Just want to add one more thing. I thought I heard a question earlier. Like you said and mentioned, David, through the presentation, there is a way on the website for any individual who's interested to receive more updates about the project and anything to get posted to be notified. So this is something that I would strongly encourage you to get signed up for. That's number one. Number two is you were asking about how a stakeholder, any other members of the public would show interest, or how would they come in or listen to these presentations. We have, and I'm going to let this Megan answer or collaborate if she likes to, but there has been mailings sent out within 300 feet of the project. There has been website posting. They will network and stakeholders sharing to their extended network. So we have advertised this through so many ways to ensure that we cover everyone that we may have missed through one way or the other. So we use several ways to reach out to the public.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. I guess relating to just like it was mentioned, the website, and this is, I guess, a question I've had for a while, but I wasn't had a chance to ask it specifically relating. And I think I maybe figured out the answer, but all of these projects are listed under the Department of Public Works under support for business. I'm wondering if that's because Megan handles those and as a business liaison, but I don't know, maybe they could be moved to a place that is accessible, more easier to find. Only reason I know is because what I do, I know where to find it. Like you wouldn't, if you were just coming to look for this on the DPW site, I would never know to look under there. So just, I guess, sorry, another comment instead of question, but.
Yeah, no, Jake, thank you so much. It is something since day one when I've taken this position as the support for business liaison that I've noted as something that we need to change in our department. And it's these project websites have been under this category. We recently, as you could tell from our website, this summer transferred to a new system. So during this change, I was able to kind of get the fire going again on the conversation of how can we reformat this to make this more user friendly, and we're working on it. It does take some time, and I'm hoping that this winter, with construction season be closing down, you know, I can put more attention towards what the future of these pages will look like.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that's all, I guess, that I have. My last thing would be just, I know that I see there's other people on the call, and you know, I would just encourage, speaking to those people who maybe haven't felt comfortable yet, I don't want us to feel like we're you know, the people who kind of work in this field are taking it over. So I just would like to encourage anyone who maybe hasn't, or is a resident or a business owner and not on the call, to not be afraid and jump in. So thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I do see Montavi's hand raised. I'm not sure if that was just from your previous conversation, and if we just didn't lower it. So if you do have a follow-up question, I just sent you an unmute request.
Yep, no, I did have a follow-up question
Okay.
based on something David said. So you said you guys have been collecting data that will influence what you present in May. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct, yes.
Okay, then I have two questions about data then. One, how far back are you guys looking at data? Because my concern is if you look at data from this year, it's going to be skewed because of coronavirus. It's going to show, you know, less people on bus stops because nobody's riding the bus, less people walking because people are staying inside, et cetera, et cetera. So making sure we correct for that skewing of the data. And two, a data-informed presentation in May concerns me, because then we might think we're designing a street, or it leads me to believe that we're going to design a street based on current usage instead of a desired usage. So not a lot of people walking on National Avenue, sure. Not a lot of people biking on National Avenue. Not because there's not a desire to, but because it's terrible to walk and bike on. So if we just looked at bike data and pedestrian data, oh, this is apparently not a street that people want to walk on or bike on, so no need to put in a real protected bike lane, or no need to expand these sidewalks. Somebody wants to be here anyway. So if we just look at data, then we won't actually be designing for the place that we actually want. We'll just be reactive, and that's a concern of mine.
No, and agree that, yes, you know, it's a challenge that we know we're in with the situation we are with COVID, that, you know, those numbers are going to be down, and as you know, we're going to have to take that into consideration. But we'll look back, you know, with the vehicular traffic, at least, you know, we will have data from years past that we can look at trends, which way the traffic volumes are going, and make that good engineering sound judgment in terms of what we believe is, you know, the need out there for that. Yeah, you know, the same thing with the peds and bicyclists, but, you know, maybe we might see that they're, you know, where the bicyclists, we actually, you know, have counts might indicate that that is actually a location that, you know, could be, you know, the connectivity to the domes. Just, we can't not collect data and not use data to the best of our ability, but you know, it is not going to be 100% just a data-driven design. We're going to use the data, and we're going to use the input from the public and the stakeholders to create this design. And we wanted to make, you know, and the data too is going to, you know, I think there's like 6 different unique neighborhoods, and there are 4 pretty large north-south corridors that kind of break this up. And, you know, my goal is to not have one typical section that runs at 2.6 miles. And so the traffic data, be it pedestrian, bike, and vehicles, and bus information that we'll get, and parking information that we'll get, you know, will allow us to, you know, I also don't want to have a typical section every block where it changes every block, but, you know, have some continuity, but some flexibility with how that looks. So we will have to use the data as well as the public's input to help, determine those typical sections through there. And, we do have areas, we've got blocks that are residential, and then you've got blocks that are commercial, and that look and feel is going to be very different as well.
So David, this is Christine. If I just may add a couple of comments and maybe to elaborate a little bit more to the speaker here, but the traffic data that are being collected, we have the ability to remove or delete some of those current data that are reflecting the non-trend, meaning the traffic during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are able to do that during the traffic forecast analysis, and that will give us a more bell curve of what is the trend within that segment or every intersections. And we do traffic forecast. So the forecast means we're doing projection into the future based on a standard analysis, and that will help us determine what is the roadway typical section or proposed typical section should look like. So there are more detailed analysis that should be done and eliminating non-trending or non-typical situations. So this is done as well as part of that information development. So that's just my 2 cents there.
Based on that, then I have even more concern than if we look at future trends, specifically around car traffic. If we look at future trends, then we end up with roads that not only accommodate the current usage of cars, but then we say, 20 years out, it's going to be, it's going to be even more cars. So let's build a road now that's going to accommodate for that future road usage. But in doing that, that's the actual encouraging of more road usage, is designing for more car usage. And we see this with DOT projects, highway expansions, because 20 years from now is going to be this amount of cars, we need to build this now. And then we end up with even more car-centric design than we have now. So it's very concerning that time and time again we see these projects, being designed based on future road projections, where instead it's just my firm conviction we should be designing for the roads we want. And that's where I am concerned that DPW and DOT might have conflicting roads that they want.
Well, okay, I understand and I totally agree with your concern. I would be too. My answer that I just mentioned now is to kind of give you an idea, especially when you mention you have concerns with the pandemic and the traffic may not reflect what's going to happen in the future. So this is one part of the pie for us to determine the final typical section, how it's going to look like. We don't only look at the vehicle on the travel lanes. We look at pedestrian, we look at bikes. Like David has mentioned, we have the complete street policy with the DPW and the state. It's not one or the other. They too have to confirm and be followed. So the pedestrian and the ADA compliant curb ramp and pedestrian crossing and safety and signals, those are all one big aspects of the project to decide, in addition to all those public informational meetings to collect concerns like you are saying and sharing with us. These are all big part of the decision maker. It's just not one aspect and doing expansions. We're not looking to do expansions here for sure. So I assure you, we're not looking at it from that experiences or past experiences you are anticipating. I'm hoping I made it a little bit clear for you. If not, let me know, please.
No, I appreciate your response. Does not stage my concern, given just, history of road building, not only in Milwaukee, but around the state and around the country. What, some fine examples here from DOT. So, but I will, we'll reserve space for you guys to change our minds around that and, prove us wrong.
And I strongly encourage you to stay engaged with us, help us see your vision, and we'll share with you at any time our vision. You have our contact information. Please, anyone on the call, feel free to let us know, reach out. We will share with you what we're doing. So we want to give you a good experience this time with this project. Let's use it as a good example. How is that?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, my concern on this road is not so much road expansion. You'd have to knock down the 2 buildings in the picture if you want to expand the road some more. So it's not concerned about road expansion here, but it is a concern about prioritizing cars and car-centric design. So I yield my time.
All right, thank you.
We wanted to say that for a while now.
Thank you for sharing that.
I did see Jake Newborn's hand up. I'm not sure if he's, yeah, okay. It's still up. Hold on 1 second. You should be able to unmute your microphone.
I was gonna say what Montavious said, so thank you, Montavious, for bringing that point up about the projections issues.
Yeah, and just, when we've done projects in the city, whether Connecting Highway or local program, and our traffic department has looked at projections, if you compared it to, a rural county or state highway, in a more rural county, and their projections might have will have a much higher percentage. I mean, you look at the city of Milwaukee, we're pretty much fully developed. So our percent, when we go into these and we start looking at, where might there be a new generator, traffic generator, and what percent might that be? They're very small numbers. We're not going to all of a sudden be like, oh, well, we're going to add 10% every year for the next 20 years for the design of the roadway. Don't remember the last project, what our number was, but because of just how built up the city is already, those projections are not substantial at all.
I guess I would counter that with, and I don't know, to be honest, how much the Milwaukee DPW had to do with, but the Hone Bridge level of service issues was, from my understanding, a major issue as to why they wouldn't add a bike lane there, along with some of the funding from the DOT, as long as also some rumored other issues. I won't quite get into the whole project, but I guess that I just like to point out that that's a recent project that was kept with all of the same lanes, on a $350 million project. When I was in packed rooms of people begging for a bike lane, and it was ultimately shot down. So I guess I don't want, this isn't personal on the people on the call, but there's some bad blood in the community of saying, like I said, packing rooms, begging for infrastructure improvements and being shot down. So again, not a personal attack on maybe, unless anyone was involved in that project. But I guess I want to just express why there is some concern and some hesitation and maybe some distrust of the things we're being told, saying, hey, we'll listen to you, because I don't feel like we have been being listened to. And I feel like there's also a lot of people that historically are not given the opportunity to be even listened to. Certain communities that, our Black communities, our brown communities, our et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, not to get too off the top there, but I just want to explain, I guess, a little bit of why we, the people who are feeling very strongly about this, aren't accepting so easily the answer that we will do it, stay in touch with the project. And so there's hesitancy, I guess. So thank you all. I do have to go. I have some other duties at home here, so I appreciate the time, and I will be in touch with this and many other projects as they move forward. So I thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
For joining us.
Carissa has her hand raised.
I must take off as well. And again, I appreciate you all putting this together, especially for a couple of days. And my closing remarks are to complement what Jake was saying, we work in a lot of different neighborhoods across the city, including the near South Side. We are very privy to the issues that residents face, and we consider their issues our issues. We guide children along those city streets to our beautiful park systems from their schools, and we have had issues, near run-in issues with motor vehicles who just simply don't care, even if they see a gaggle of children. And I think that that is completely unacceptable. The one thing that I really want to emphasize again is just that kind of like frustration that we all have. And something that I come in contact with in working in a lot of Black and brown neighborhoods is, again, that whole issue of like, I'm frustrated with something, but I don't know how to necessarily articulate my frustration or break free from the barriers that are placed upon me. For example, I would love to bike with my family. I would love to walk with my family, but I don't have the time or place to do that. I do believe I do want a high quality of life, but get this, people who are living in these neighborhoods who are most oppressed are still, their incomes, their quality of life are still being severely hampered, just as everyone else in the country, but they have that disadvantage. So in this country right now, 30% of your income is associated with housing. And also 30% of our income, or close to it, is associated with vehicular ownership. Okay. The way, even though Milwaukee is developed, the way it is designed has spread us out incredibly. We are very spread out, and not a lot of people understand that or know that. They're slaves. They are slaves to their vehicles. They are slaves to their living situations. And this is broadly about land use. And I really, really want people to understand that when you come into this space and you advocate for your needs, you are advocating for the quality of life that you deserve, so you are not a slave to those basic amenities. There's no reason. In the Latinx neighborhoods, there's an average of two plus cars per household. That's more than Black neighborhoods. These people are spending a lot of money on their cars. And there's reasons why, and it's not just because they like them. There's more reasons than that. We shouldn't have to be slaves to these means. That's 60+% of your income going to things that really should not determine your quality of life in such a detrimental way. It takes away everything else, it sucks the air out of the room. You must commit to do better. We have to. And so, when you're talking about how you don't want to overprescribe your presentation with facilities, I'm not asking you to tell people how it's going to be and how the facilities look. I'm asking you to come to the table to express the shared philosophy that we are moving forward with. Milwaukee residents created the Complete Streets policy, okay? They wrote it with the city of Milwaukee. It is a nationally acclaimed top national Complete Streets policy awarded. And there's a reason why. It's because we all work together to do that. You should have no shame, no worry about putting that in front of a community member at every chance you can get. Be proud of it. Make it the top thing on your list when you present to the community, because it's not just the DPW who wrote that. People wrote that. I will close out on that. It's more than transportation. It's land use broadly. Black and brown Americans are spending disproportionately way too much of their income and lives because of the barriers that they face on these mode shares. So your responsibility is much bigger than just an engineer checkbox. It is like some serious commitment and philosophical moral adjustment that you need to take into consideration, because we've gone way too long with empty promises frustration, and the people of Milwaukee deserve a lot better. These types of decisions that have gone wrong for as long as I've been in Milwaukee are the things that keep Milwaukee segregated. Yes, that onus will continue to be on you if you do not make those changes. I yield my time. I do have to go. I appreciate all of you. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Carissa.
Carissa.
So the remaining individuals we have are Montavious and DOT staff, just to let everyone know.
So yeah, I'm the
there you
last
go.
one. I'll say my closing remarks too, and then you guys can chat amongst yourselves. I want to echo what Carissa said. Land use and transportation policy is an equity and justice issue. For far too long, Carissa is exactly correct when she says people are slaves to their mode share, specifically car ownership. And that's due to the design of our city and our city roads. Car ownership has become and has been for some years now the cost of participation in society. And that should not be the case. And that is only the case because, again, of the types of roads and land use we have today. So going forward, it is a moral imperative. It's I think we are morally responsible to uplift those communities in which we serve, and take into consideration not just how people move throughout the city, but how the ways in which people move throughout the city and the mode shares they use determines a lot of how they live and where they live and the quality of life that they have. So again, like Jake said, we've been burned before. We've been, in rooms screaming for these improvements that we want to see, and then they get shot down. So excuse us that we're so fired up about this and concerned about this. But for far too long, these communities have suffered due to conditions like this, where the needs of the few people who don't live in the neighborhood, who just ride through, are prioritized over the needs of people who do live in the neighborhood. People have to use National Avenue on foot. They go to work there. They live there every day. But somebody who just wants to cut across the city, they're all taken care of. Everybody else gets scraps. And that is a justice issue. And I think in a city like Milwaukee, we have to have that at the front of our minds at all times. Everything we do is a justice issue, or it can be, or it cannot be if we don't think about it. But I think that's one of the things that has to be. So I just want to make sure that going forward, both DPW and DOT and all the other players that are involved in this have that at the front of their minds, that land use and transportation policy is a racial justice issue, a class issue. And given our history, we have to do everything within our powers to address that. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you, Montavious.
Thank you.